What's up, everybody? How's it going? And welcome to this episode of Car Rant. Today, we've got the little brother with us. We're chilling in the garage. We're trying to get the Metro running, and we're talking about jacked up politics and how it's going to affect everybody. Today, we're in the garage because what better place to talk about this subject than the place where things that will now be made illegal happen. To make it all short and sweet, the EPA is trying to put forward a bit of legislation that'll make it illegal to modify a car in almost any way. There are some things you can still do because there are loopholes that are at play, such as like suspension parts, like sway bars, because they're a necessary part to the car. You could argue that it's an OEM plus option because there are some companies that have that already. See Ford, for example, with the Raptors and all that. But otherwise, when it comes to power, you're up the creek if this goes through, because they're trying to make it so that's not legal to do anything. So the RPM Act is in play to try and protect people who want to build cars to go put them on the racetrack. The problem that I have is that these concessions won't cover street cars.
It only covers the cars.
It only covers cars that can go to track.
Racing.
Yeah. So if you're like us, where we like to build cars in garages and modify them for the street and have some fun and being a hobbyist and all that, then you are left with nothing. You literally have nothing. You are now an illegal citizen, if you will, because you have a car that you've modified or changed parts on, and realistically it's going after the manufacturers. We both know this, but it's not fun to try and deal with, hey, I want to make this just a little bit faster, and then being told, nah, you do this, you could face serious punishment, possibly even jail time, depending on how this legislation wants to move forward.
What's one of the quickest ways to make your car run faster or have your engine run better? And that's to improve airflow. So
well, airflow and fuel.
Exhaust,
AFR is the biggest deal.
air intakes,
Turbos, superchargers, twin chargers, like all that stuff suddenly becomes only for track use. Which, here's how this all boils down to why this is such a bad idea. Forget enthusiasm. Forget loving to build cars, all that stuff.
Talk about the average.
What's the money part of it?
Yeah.
What's the money part? Well, these companies who have hired hundreds of people to build stuff, market them, all this stuff, well, now suddenly have no job because they can't market these parts to people unless they're a professional driver and they've got a competitive track license and all that stuff. So now all the people that were working are now not working because they don't have the opportunity to do that, right? They lose the ability to have a job because the job that they did no longer is needed or can't exist given everything else, right? Why would you have a marketing department if the only people you're selling to are pros?
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
The whole point of a marketing department is to appeal to us. We, the average normal consumer, not the high tier pro consumer, right? Nike isn't putting ads to LeBron for shoes.
Right.
They're approaching them directly with, here's a deal for your shoes, right? And that's how that handles that side of business. But say Garrett Turbos wants to sell turbos to us, they can't do that unless they become an OEM or you have a track car. That affects the bottom line, that affects jobs, that affects economic value. Break down even further, this also affects companies overseas in places like Germany, Australia, Austria, Japan, because now those manufacturers can't sell us those parts, right? HKS suddenly has no point in being the American market because they can't sell their exhausts or sell their intakes or their cams or anything to do with the car, and possibly even the coilovers if the EPA has their way, because now suddenly they can't afford to send stuff here because no one's able to buy it unless they're a pro. And like we said already, they're going to be sending reps to go deal with that, so marketing goes out the window. All the people that worked hard in college to have those types of degrees to be in that type of field now don't have a job. You see what I'm saying? So this affects companies overseas. Those are also companies that sponsor pro drivers, and half the reason why they even sponsor the pro drivers is because when the pro drivers do well, what's the old saying? What's wins on Sunday, sells on Monday?
Yeah.
Well, there's not going to be any selling on Monday if, say, the driver for NVIDIA wins, cool.
Yeah.
There's
basically.
nothing else to happen with
Right,
it.
because it's not like if he wins, it's like, oh, what did he use to win? Oh, I can put that on my car. That doesn't happen anymore.
Because now the consumer is gone, and you're killing markets and trade value with other business partners around the world. So forget the enthusiasm side of it. Like I said, this has really bad economic value against every part of it. Because they're saying, oh, well, it's to protect the high-end motorsports side like NASCAR. Well, the problem is the companies that sponsor the parts for NASCAR suddenly can't afford to be there because the domestic consumer can't afford to buy it or can't buy it, period.
The NASCAR ends up...
Professional motorsports goes away.
Yeah.
Like, this
NASCAR,
trickles down so seriously, like an avalanche over a period of, I would guess, about 2 years is what it would take for it all to fully fall apart, right? So, in the end, this EPA regulation is really, really bad for business, bad for anyone involved with automotive enthusiasm. And that includes people in electric cars and hybrid cars because you can modify those too. Right? I've seen some lowered down Teslas and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's stuff you can do with those cars that you will no longer be allowed to do because the manufacturers at play can't play.
Right.
So, yeah, it's bad. It's bad policy.
Bad.
Let me take that. It's bad policy. All right.
Because again, with an electric car, sure, you can't put a turbo on an electric motor.
That would be a great video.
That'd be hilarious.
That would be a great video.
But you can still put coilovers on.
Wheels, tires.
Wheels, tires, coilovers, you know, like that still applies because it has nothing to do with an engine. It has
Basically,
everything to
the
do with
only thing that
suspension.
you could do on a car is interior work. Seats, stuff like that. But even then, the way they worded it, if you have aftermarket, say, Brid seats, you could get an ad for that.
Yeah.
Because the way the law is worded, any sort of modification,
You could have you just have a different shift knob and,
any sort of modification can be considered illegal.
right.
So,
They need if they're gonna do it, they need to reword it, and then they also need to make sure that, you know, because if they pass this and it goes through or whatever, it's gonna experience tons of backlash.
oh, 100%.
And that's the thing is, if it experiences enough backlash, they're gonna visit it, and then they'll probably just
Well, so get
remake
this,
the law.
right? If you look at the science, right? Everyone's saying follow the science, follow the science. If you look at the science, the U.S., as far as pollution goes, it's one of the lowest in the world.
Right.
You wanna know who's one of the highest in the world? The people are pushing for things like climate accords.
Mm-hmm.
So China, India, these are countries with real bad pollution.
Yeah.
Right? China has zero regulations at all when it comes to Clean Air Acts, all that stuff. So realistically, if you're talking about bearing the brunt of responsibility for climate change, like the
Don't
people
put it on
to
us.
point the finger at is not us.
Right.
Right? The people to point the finger at is people like China who actively pollute stuff to the point where their people are dying from it at much younger ages. Right? And if you want proof of this, look this stuff up. I don't have any links for it right now because I'm in my garage, but trust us when we say it, like, we're actually one of the better players when it comes to pollution because of how big we pushed clean energy, how big we pushed hybrid cars, electric cars. Like, I get it. There are countries like Iceland and they got it down to a science, but we're not Iceland. In fact, our cultural normatives are not even close
Nothing
to that
like
when it
Iceland.
comes to
Yeah.
automobiles, right? For them, there's really no point in having one because a super small country, right? New England fits inside of it.
Yeah.
And most of the livable space on Iceland isn't as large as the United States, where a gas car can go the distance, but an electric car can't.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of all that, like, the types of enthusiasm that's out there for extracurriculars is much more winter sports and things like that. Not like us here where, yeah, sunny California, where you could constantly drive your convertible with the top down all year long,
Yeah.
right?
Very
So we have completely different normal realities, if you will, compared to places like that. So I say all this to say, we need to speak out. We need to speak up. I actually got in touch with my congressman. Was like, this is a bad deal. You got to fix this. It's just, this ain't gonna go well. And this whole video explains why, because the trickle-down economics of this could be substantial. Right?
Well, if you think about it, it's the way they word everything.
It leaves
built to it leaves so there's no gray area. It's you know it's only a white. There's no room to like fiddle around with things.
And it's a blanket coverage. That's the other part that hurts. It's not like, oh, well, you can't have fart cans or you can't have just cut out cats, right? It's any modification whatsoever, which damages such a large amount.
And they point the finger at at our cars because of the reputation that street racing has and what modifying a car leads to, which one of the roads that it does lead to is street racing. And it's like, I've watched so many videos and done so much research, and it's like school buses, public transportation, all this other stuff, big trucks on the road give off so much construction vehicles give off so much more pollution than a really our 1,000 horsepower project car that comes out like only on nice days and it's being driven maybe 3,000 miles.
You know what the best part is? A lot of these cars that run really high horsepower aren't even running on gas. They're running on ethanol.
Right, E85.
What is ethanol? What's the byproduct of it? It's water. So we're not even polluting nearly as much as your government-owned vehicles do, right? And here's the thing, okay? That dude in blue, huge shout out, because Virginia dude now living in Atlanta, but Virginia dude nonetheless. He did his video, and I waited to do this video because I originally shot my own. And I went, nah, I want to bring John because he's gonna be a towel. Let's bring the boy in. Anyway, he made his video and he found one of those articles talking about this, and it just demonized car culture. But you know what the best part was? Every single picture they had was a diesel truck rolling coal.
No.
Do you know how big of a market the diesel trucks are? This. Okay? You know how much gas cars are? The whole rest of that circle.
Exactly.
Right? When it comes to carbon-based fuel. So, like, you're demonizing one subset of culture, but in reality you're demonizing the entire culture for the errors of small group people. The point is that the bill is bad. The targets of this bill are affecting the entire whole, and the reality is the economic fallout is substantial. The EPA needs to stop trying to control people's lives. Let us enjoy a hobby that realistically does not damage the environment hardly at all. Because, fun fact, while everyone was in quarantine, the race car guys were like, open highways, let's go. And the ozone layer recovered.
There you go.
Okay, so to say that we're the problem is to ignore the science. So there you go, EPA. Eat your own words. Well, technically that's Fauci's words, but nonetheless, you're a government body, so it counts. Thank you guys for watching and hearing our spiel on this, because A, we've had discussions for a couple hours about like just how far this can go.
I've made my own thing about it.
And if you follow the money, you'll realize that this is just bad all the way around. It's not good for America. It's not good for the world. It's not good for nobody.
So do us a favor.
Get in touch with your congressman.
Get in touch with your congressman. Go and sign that petition for the RPM Act, because as many bodies as it counts.
Yeah, seriously, because people need to know, especially your elected leaders, need to know how you, the people, feel. And if they choose to ignore it, like I am with this dog, it's not going to lead to good things. And that's very true. With that said, God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time. Peace.